What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm doing a Dark Paladin deck profile. So I'm really excited to see you guys because Dark Paladin is one of the most nostalgic monsters in the entire game and one of my favorite fusion monsters ever created. This deck is super nostalgic and really fun to be able to play. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name scripture in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Buster Blader. Buster Blader is a key piece in this deck to be able to fusion summon into Dark Paladin. But this card is a really awesome card because it has the ability that the attack of this card is increased by 500 points for every dragon type monster in your opponent's side of the field and in their graveyard, which is a great effect to be able to just boost this monster up to get absolutely massive. We then play 3 copies of the Ultimate Wizard in terms of attack and defense. The Dark Magician. This card is really good as a 3-of in the deck because you want to be able to see this card in your hand so that you can fusion summon into Dark Paladin. I then play a single copy of Apprentice Illusion Magician. This card is just a really good 1-of to be able to boost up the attack of our Dark Paladin and also search out our Dark Magician. This card is a great 1-of because you can special summon it to your side of the field by discarding a card. I then play 3 copies of King of the Swamp. King of the Swamp is a great searcher and a fusion substitute monster because it has the ability that you can substitute this card for any one fusion material that is specifically listed on a fusion monster. For example, if I have Polymerization in my hand, I can activate Polymerization and use King of the Swamp plus a Buster Blader or a Dark Magician to be able to make Dark Paladin, which is a really awesome effect. You can also discard this card to the graveyard to search Polymerization, which is a great effect to be able to get you your card that you need to be able to make your copy of Dark Paladin. I then play 3 copies of Keeper of Dragon Magic. This card is a great 3-of in the deck and one of the best normal summons in the entire build, because it has the ability that if this card is normal or special summon, you can discard a card to add a Polymerization normal spell card or a fusion normal spell card from your deck to your hand, which gets you your fusion spell that you can go into your copy of Dark Paladin super easy. This card can also recover some of your monsters that you use as fusion material because it has the ability that you reveal any fusion monster in your X deck and then special summon one fusion material whose name is specifically listed on that fusion monster. For example, if you have Dark Paladin in your X deck, you can reveal Dark Paladin, and then if you have a Dark Magician or a Buster Blader in the graveyard, you can just revive those monsters back and put them in face down defense position with the effect of Keeper of Dragon Magic, which is really good because then you get our monster back on the field. I then play 3 copies of Magician Soul. Magician Soul is a great card in the deck as well because it helps you get to your copy of Dark Magician that much faster. It also has a really good on-field effect that lets you draw cards because it has the ability that you can send up to 2 spells and traps from your hand or field to the graveyard to draw that many cards. And if this card is in your hand, you can send a level 6 or higher spellcaster monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is always going to be Dark Magician, to be able to special summon this card or send this card to the graveyard and then special summon a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from your graveyard, which is a great effect to be able to just instantly get to your copy of Dark Magician. I then play 3 copies of Buster Whelp. Buster Whelp is a great normal summon in the deck as well, because when this card is normal summoned, you can add a Destruction Sword card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a great effect to be able to get to a really important card, your copies of your Prologue of the Destruction Sword. Prologue of the Destruction Sword is a really awesome card to help us go for a copy of Buster Dragon, and then later go for a copy of our Buster Blader fusion monster to help us go in for game, and it's just a really good backup plan to go along with our Dark Paladin. I then play a single copy of Dragon Buster. Dragon Buster is a really awesome card if it's equipped to one of our Buster Blader monsters, because it will lock the opponent out of the extra deck, which is really awesome in this deck. I'm also playing a branded package in this deck because it helps us go into cards like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon and some really powerful extra deck monsters like Mirror Jade to back up this deck strategy. So we're going to be playing just 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz, which is a walking super polymerization, which is just really nice in this deck, and a single copy of the Light Hex Seal fusion, which is also a fusion substitute monster like our copy of King of the Swamp that can come in extremely handy to be able to use with branded fusion to help us step into some really powerful fusion monsters. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, I'm going to be playing a single copy of Magicalized Fusion. Magicalized Fusion is basically Miracle Fusion for the deck that lets us fusion summon a spellcaster type monster from your extra deck by banishing the fusion materials for it from your graveyard or your field, which is really good because if we fusion summon into a copy of Dark Paladin, and we have, for example, a Dark Magician and a Buster Blader in the graveyard, we can actually make a second copy of Dark Paladin, which is absolutely insane. Or if we make Dark Paladin first and we have a dragon monster that's in the graveyard with a copy of Dark Magician, you can actually make Red Eyes Dark Dragoon with Magicalized Fusion, which is a really cool thing to be able to put Dark Paladin and its retrain Red Eyes Dark Dragoon on the field. I then play 3 copies of Polymerization. Polymerization is the main way that we're going to be summoning out our copy of Dark Paladin, which this card is just really good in the deck to be able to play as a 3-of because you want to play this card so that you see it and summon out your copy of Dark Paladin super easily. We have a lot of ways to get to this card with our copies of our Keeper in Dragon Magic, or Keeper of Dragon Magic, and our copies of King of the Swamp to be able to get to this card super easy to then fusion summon into some extremely powerful fusion monsters. I then play 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion is just too good in this deck not to play. It lets us fusion summon from the deck by sending a Fallen of Albaz and another fusion material from our deck to the graveyard to be able to fusion summon into cards like our Albion or even Lubellion to step into some really powerful fusion monsters. This card is just really good overall in just about any fusion deck, and is a great tech card in this build. I then play 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. Fusion Deployment is really insane because it can actually let us special summon out our copy of Buster Blader or Dark Magician directly from the deck by just revealing a copy of, say, Dark Paladin. All we have to do is reveal Dark Paladin in the extra deck, and then once we do, we get to special summon one of its materials from the deck, like a copy of Dark Magician or our copy of Buster Blader, which is a really good effect. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, it's mainly going to be Buster Blader trap cards, and we're going to start off with 2 copies of Destruction Sword Memories. Destruction Sword Memories is a really good card in the deck to be able to help you go in for your Buster Blader fusion monster, because it has the ability that you can banish this card from your graveyard and then fusion summon a Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, from your extra deck by banishing the fusion materials listed on it from your graveyard, which helps us go in for our really powerful boss monster. And then play 3 copies of Prologue. Prologue of the Destruction Sword is a really good 3-of in the deck as well, because this card is going to help us go for our copy of Buster Dragon, which will turn every monster on the field into a dragon monster, which will then boost up our Dark Paladin's attack points and boost up our copy of our Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman attack points, which is really good, because this card has the ability you can send a Destruction Sword card and a Buster Blader monster from your deck to the graveyard, except another copy of this card to special summon out a Buster Dragon from your extra deck or graveyard, but destroy it during the end phase of the next turn. But this card is really good in the deck to be able to help you go in for your copy of your Buster Dragon, and then send your copy of your Destruction Sword Memories with a Buster Blader from the deck to the graveyard, so you can go in for those really good plays. And then play 3 copies of Trap Trick. Trap Trick just basically is 3 additional copies of Prologue of the Destruction Sword. This card is just really good overall to be able to use to basically get to your copy of Prologue extremely quickly. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing the main boss monster that we're going to try and summon in this deck all the time, and that's going to be 2 copies of Dark Paladin. This card is one of my favorite fusion monsters. I absolutely love this card, and this is actually my favorite artwork of Dark Paladin, and definitely comment down below what your favorite artwork is of Dark Paladin. But this card is absolutely nuts because it is a walking spell negate by just discarding a card once per turn, and it also gains attack points for every dragon monster on the field and in either player's graveyard, which is absolutely insane because this card can get massive on the field, and it's also a walking negate, which is really nice. I then play 2 copies of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon and Dark Paladin in the same deck is just too cool because summoning out a copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is super easy in this deck with all the Buster Blader cards like Buster Whelp and your copy of Buster Dragon, along with Keeper of Dragon Magic, all being dragon effect monsters, makes this card super easy to summon, especially alongside those copies of Dark Magician. This card is a walking negate and it can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, which is really awesome, and it's just an overall fantastic card. And in this deck, where we're actually playing Dark Magician, you can get that pop effect of an opponent's monster to do burn damage, which is awesome. I then play 2 copies of Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. This card is a really good 2-of in the deck to help us go in for an insanely powerful fusion monster that can pretty much end the game, and it's just a really cool boss monster overall, but it has a really neat effect that it must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways, and this card can't attack directly, which is a little bit of a downside on this card, but it has the ability that it gains 1,000 attack and defense points for each dragon type monster opponent controls or in their graveyard, and you change all dragon type monsters that your opponent controls to defense position, and also dragon type monsters in your opponent's possession cannot activate their effects. And if this card attacks a defense position monster, it does piercing damage. And this card can get absolutely massive when you have your copy of Buster Dragon on the field, turning every monster your opponent controls into dragons. I then play a single copy of Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. This card is just too cool in the deck not to play. Like, you're playing a Red Eyes fusion with your Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, you're playing Buster Blader, you're playing your copies of Dark Magician, and then you can throw in a Blue Eyes. You can make this card with Branded Fusion by just activating Branded Fusion and sending Fallen of Albaz plus Light Hex Seal Fusion from your deck to the graveyard, making a copy of Albion, and then banishing your copy of Fallen of Albaz and your Light Hex Seal Fusion from the graveyard. You can actually make this card. This card can attack every monster that your opponent controls, which is absolutely insane. And then once returned at the end of the damage step, if this card battled, you can target a trap card in the graveyard and set it back to the field, which can recover back your copy of your prologue to be able to use later, which is really nice for this deck. I then play a single copy of Mirror Jade because it's just a really awesome boss monster to summon off your copy of Branded Fusion. One copy of Lubellion because it's super easy to make your copy of Mirror Jade with Lubellion. One copy of Albion. I only had room for one Albion. I wanted to play a second copy of this card, but I only had room for a single copy in this deck, so I only played one Albion. If you can find room for another copy, you can definitely add it, but it's a really good card because it basically makes it a miracle fusion in this deck to be able to make your copies of your fusion monsters, which is awesome. And then play a single copy of the Abyss Dragon. Abyss Dragon is really good because if you normal summon Fallen of Albaz and you have your copy of Buster Dragon on the field, all your opponent's monsters are dragons, so you can basically Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon your opponent's monsters with this card, which is a really insane thing. And then play a single copy of Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon because we are playing the Blue Eyes, the Buster Blader, and the Dark Magician Buster Blader fusion. Why not play Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, especially if you've got a Ghost Rare version of this card, which is just too cool for this deck. This card does 500 points of burn damage to your opponent every time they breathe, which is absolutely insane. This card is super easy to make and just a fantastic XZ monster, and my favorite XZ monster in the entire game. I then play 2 copies of Buster Dragon. Buster Dragon is really good in the deck because it turns every monster your opponent controls into a dragon monster, and it has the ability basically that if you don't have a Buster Blader on your side of the field, then you can target a Buster Blader in your graveyard and special summon it, which is a really insane effect. And then play a single copy of Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh is just a really good 1-of in the deck because you do play level 1 monsters like Magician Soul that you can link away for Linkuriboh to give you a little bit of protection, and playing a Kuriboh monster alongside all these other nostalgic monsters is just too cool. So anyways guys, that's it for this one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. This deck is really insane. It's super fun to be able to play, and it's absolutely crazy to be able to summon out Dark Paladin in this deck. It's so cool to be able to throw that card on the field and attack for game, and it's just such an awesome nostalgic monster. So anyways guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and there soon come part notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later guys.